I have another landmine for you from history. This is still out there. It's not used by many countries. What you're looking at is a former Yugoslavian PMR-3 stake mine. And I should note that this is the old version. There isn't an improved version of this mine, which I might mention some info on it later. Now, these mines were used in large numbers during the Bosnian Civil War. So those of us that served back then, when we had to prepare for the possibility of rotations into Bosnia, we had to go through and do identification tests on like 20 or 30 different Yugoslav mines. This is one that was always in there because we were told it's extremely common. Now, when this entered service, I do not know. I did go through some of my older engineer manuals that I have on digital that track back to during the Cold War, and I do not find it mentioned in the manuals from the late 1970s, early 1980s. So my guess is this mine probably appeared in the inventory sometime in the 80s, obviously before 1990, when the Civil War began. Now, the PMR-3 is an evolution of the PMR-1 and PMR-2. Both of those series of mines are pretty much copies of the Russian POM-Z stake mine, which used a wooden stake. This version, they replaced the wooden stake with a piece of angle iron. Not very thick, not extremely tall, you know, just enough to do the job. It's essentially like a big tent stake. And then on the tent stake, if you can kind of see here, are two notches. That there are two lugs on the side of the mine itself that go into those notches. This mine can be placed onto the stake, straight up and down like this, or upside down in order to better conceal the tripwire, but still have the actual fragmentation part of the mine closer to the target for setting it off. And down here you see them actually placed in vegetation. Now, the mine casing is steel. There are 6 cuts into it, creating 7 ribs. This is to, in theory, assist with fragmentation. But, as all of us should know by now, doesn't really work that way. When an explosion happens, it's going to shatter the weak portions in the metal itself where the composition isn't as strong. That's where your breach points are going to be. It's not going to breach wherever the ribs are. The height of the mine itself is 5 inches, so about the height of a soda can. Diameter is 3 inches. I could not find a height on the stakes. No matter where I looked, didn't matter the source, no one told me the height. The weight of the mine is 4.5 pounds, of which the explosive filler is 14.5 ounces of TNT. It is set off using the UPMR-3 fuse or the UPROM-1 fuse. And we'll show those here. This is a UPMR-3. That's a UPROM-1 fuse. They're essentially the exact same. This one is meant for the PROM-1 series bounding fragmentation mine. This is the one that's supposed to be used on the PMR-3, but both of them will work on that mine. Now, for when this is placed on the stake, tension on the tripwire only needs 6 2/3 pounds of tension to pull the top part of the fuse here to the side, shooting down the striker, setting off the detonator, setting off the main charge in the mine. Now these can be placed in the ground, and then in that case it takes 20 pounds of downward pressure on these pressure prongs up here to start the process. Now there was a note that the PMR-3 fuse is not recommended for use during the winter time. And the reason for that is these mine fuses were just a little too sensitive to snow and ice buildup, that would cause enough of a tilt on here to set off the fuse. Now, how these are employed: if you're going to put it in the ground like this as a pressure type mine, which is not recommended because it really lowers the effect, but in desperation, the Yugoslavs or former Yugoslavs, the Serbs, the Croats, the Bosnian Muslims, Kosovo, could put these in the ground as traditional mines, so to speak. You would first dig the hole to almost the top of the fuse here, below the pressure prongs, where it would be. You then screw in the PMR-3 fuse and then place it in the hole, backfill it up to about this point here with dirt. At that point, you're going to go through and arm the fuse, and this is a good picture of it here. You lift up on this little bail right here, this ring, and when you do that, it pries apart the clip up here, opening it up, and then you can just take it and pull it right off. The mine is now armed. You would then backfill the rest of the dirt up to, say, about this point up here. You want just enough of the pressure prongs out of the ground that someone can step on it and set the mine off. But you don't want so much out of the ground that it's easy to see. So you want to kind of camouflage it in vegetation. Now, to remove the mine when it's in the ground, first go through, sweep the area, make sure it hasn't been booby-trapped. Locate the mine, remove the dirt carefully from around the top of the fuse here, down past where the collar is going to go. You're then going to take the clip with the bail straight out, horizontal, slip the clip back on, right in here, and then clear out a bit more, flip the bail down, dig out around the rest of the mine, make sure it's not booby-trapped, remove it from the ground, and then unscrew the fuse from the mine. And then pack everything up. Now, how it's emplaced in stake mode, say you're trying to cross a trail, you run in a tripwire across a trail, or you're setting these up in front of your position with tripwires so that if your enemy does a suicidal, mass charge, the chances of them setting these mines off are considerably high than if it's just set in pressure. First thing you're going to do, you're going to place the stake where you want it. You're then going to screw the PMR-3 fuse to the mine and install it on the stake, either upright or upside down like this. Doesn't matter, it'll work both ways. You're then going to go to your anchor point. If you don't have a stake there or have a spot that you can tie off onto, you're going to place an anchor at that point. You're then going to run the tripwire back to the mine and connect the tripwire to the prongs. And I'm just double checking the pictures here. The ones that I seen in the 90s showed that there was holes drilled inside the pressure prongs for connecting the tripwire to, but there isn't any in these pictures. There should be little holes up near the end up here on each prong for tying in tripwire. Attach the tripwire to the prong or prongs. You can attach up to 6 tripwires reportedly to each mine. 1 to each prong and then 2 to the post in the center here. So tie in the tripwires to the pressure prong. Not too tight to the point where you're going to put tension on the fuse, making it hard to remove the safety collar. You also don't want to put so much tension on it that once you remove the collar, it's going to activate the mine in your face. You then go through, flip up on the bail to the horizontal position, and then remove the safety collar. It actually says when you're removing the safety collar, you're supposed to kind of turn it downward towards the body of the mine. So bail up, start pulling it back, and then slowly taking it down to unsnap it from around here. You then go through, camouflage the mine. The mine's in place. To disarm it, you're coming back in, you're going to recover the mine. First off, check for booby traps. And one note that was on the EOD website on this, check along the tripwire before you remove the mine, because there's the possibility that there could be pressure type mines buried either directly under the tripwire or in front of or behind the tripwire to trick up the deminer to injure themselves when they're going through and removing the mine. Once you got confirmed everything is clear, you go back and carefully remove the camouflage from around the mine. You then reinstall the safety clamp around the fuse. You're going to go in, bring it in from the bottom here a little bit, kind of tilt it up, get it in place, drop the bail down to lock it in position. You will then detach the tripwires, making sure those tripwires are not attached to something else to set the mine off. You will then unscrew the fuse and remove the mine from the stake and then recover the stake. These mines are only used in 2 locations. Former Yugoslavia, the countries around there still have them in their inventories. And also Chile in South America has them also. So because these are in South America, there's always the possibility that if anything happens in North America, some of these could find their way through the black market up into North America to get used by one group or another. These mines, the main reason I'm showing them to you is this is a variation of a stake mine. Instead of using a big wooden stake, you have a metal stake on the side attached to the mine. And I know I've seen pictures out of Bosnia. Some of these were found not on the angle iron stake like this. They were attached to rebar stakes. So it's like someone had gotten the mines, didn't grab the stakes, or maybe they stole the mines from the enemy's perimeter late at night. They wanted to use them again. So they went through, did the little quote-unquote jungle workshop thing in the metal shop in town, created brand new stakes for them out of rebar, whatever was available, and then put these out in the perimeter. The strength of these is going to be pretty strong because you got almost 1 pound of TNT inside the mine. So it is going to be stronger than your average hand grenade. Now the blast radius on this, when the mine goes off above ground, when it's on the stake, is 15 meters. Wound radius is out to 50 meters, which is kind of the guarantee from what I came across in the EOD stuff. But fragmentation can be sent out to 200 meters away from the mine. Obviously, the farther away from the mine you are, lowers the chance of you catching a piece of shrapnel. Now, the newer version, I'll just make quick notes on this because it really is its own separate mine, and no one knows why the former Yugoslavia has named the newer version a PMR-3. It is a completely different type of mine. It uses the same type of stake. The body is not ribbed. It is actually flat, like a can. And then the fuse on top is not omnidirectional like this. You can't bury it in the ground. It has just a regular pole type fuse to attach a tripwire to. You cannot put it in the ground in pressure mode. Now I will mention up here at the top of the fuse, you got a little ring here. These can be set up as a booby trap inside a building also, without using the stake. You would take this mine, put the fuse on, attach it to or hide it wherever you're going to inside the structure, run a tripwire across to the ring here, and there you go. You got a way of setting it off inside the building. You just got to make sure secure the mine as best as possible to keep it from falling over when someone hits a tripwire. I wanted to make that note because I came across that in the EOD website for when they were clearing buildings, they would sometimes find the mines employed that way. So there you go. A Yugoslavian or former Yugoslavian PMR-3 stake mine. Not too many people use them around the world, but it is an interesting variation, and it is a mine that could potentially be found in North America if something ever happens. Because there's only the one foreign purchaser that has these, and that's in South America. Now, for all my engineer brothers and Patriot militia movements, always remember, essayons.